I'm willing to lose my job over this. I've been here for 21 years, and this is much bigger than my job. This is about freedom in this country and the governmental overreach that's happening right now.
That is LA firefighter John Knox with me and Marla Tejas on Fox 11 this week. He's among a group of first responders refusing to show proof of vaccination. Meanwhile, In-N-Out making national news with its push back on vaccine mandates. In the Bay Area, one of their restaurants was temporarily closed because of that. We've got quite a panel to debate this issue of vaccine mandates this week. Anna Kasparian is back. She's a host and executive producer of The Young Turks, one of the leading progressive online voices. You can check out her work at youtube.com/theyoungturks. Steve Hilton hosts The Next Revolution Sundays at 6 p.m. Pacific on the Fox News channel. He recently launched California Rebel Base, a podcast and newsletter focused on California politics. And just this week, in a courageous protest of eating a hamburger, he supported In-N-Out in their fight against vaccine mandates. This is literally the opposite of a hunger strike. Steve Hilton, thank you so much. Welcome to The Issue Is for the first time. And Anna Kasparian, welcome back.
Thank you.
Great to be with you.
Anna, as our returning champion, let's start with you. You've heard the pushback to vaccine mandates. Why do you think they're important?
I believe the vaccine mandates are important because we have precedent for them in this country's history, dating back to 1777, when George Washington implemented a vaccine mandate on his own troops in response to smallpox. And more importantly, we had a health system, a health care system that was overwhelmed, absolutely overwhelmed with coronavirus patients, which would lead to doctors turning other patients away when they needed treatment for serious illnesses and diseases like cancer. Companies want to get back to work. They want their workers to come back to the workplace and feel safe in doing so. And what we've noticed with the implementation of vaccine mandates is that now hospitals are being alleviated of COVID-19 patients. We're also seeing that the overblown predictions regarding workers quitting as a result of vaccine mandates did not play out. 95% of United Airlines workers agreed to get the vaccine, very high numbers in regard to Tyson workers as well. So what we're seeing is that the honestly pretty weak vaccine mandate that was handed down by the federal government has already paid some pretty significant dividends, both in the form of saving people's lives and also getting companies back at work.
But we are seeing relatively low numbers among law enforcement and firefighters, especially compared to the population as a whole. Steve Hilton, I know you're pushing back on the concept of vaccine mandates. Why?
Yeah, look, I agree with a lot of what Anna said there, but I don't think it makes the case for mandates. And by the way, I should say I don't need that much of an excuse to go and get an In-N-Out burger, so I was proud to do it this week.
I was saying, that's why I described it as courageous.
Yeah, exactly. I think that it's an interesting example to me when you look at what President Biden is saying nationally and Governor Newsom and other Democrats here in California. It seems to me it's an example of them working really hard to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Not that long ago, President Biden was saying that if we could reach 70% of adults vaccinated, that would be great. That would we'd be able to declare independence from the virus. We're way past that now here in California. We're way past 80% of everyone eligible across the state. In some counties, it's nearly 100%. So I don't know why they don't turn around and say, look, we've done a great job at getting people vaccinated. Instead, they're turning it into this very divisive political fight, specifically on this vaccine mandate. It is true, of course, that there have been mandates for other vaccines. The case for a mandate rests on two things, both the private benefit of the vaccine and the public benefit. There's no question about the private benefit of these vaccines. If you take the vaccine, it's highly effective at preventing serious illness or death. That's why so many people rushed out to get the vaccine. But the second part of the argument for a mandate is that there's a public benefit. If everyone takes the vaccine, then we are all more protected. And that depends on the vaccines being effective at reducing and stopping transmission. And in fact, the data and the science shows, and in fact, it was never sold in that way. These vaccines don't stop people from transmitting the virus. They protect you, but they don't help you protect anyone else. And that's why there's no real public health or scientific justification for the mandates. And in the process of enforcing them, you're actually putting into place pretty heartless policies where you see people who otherwise we would describe as heroes in our community, firefighters, as we just saw, police officers, nurses in hospitals saying, I don't want to get this vaccine. I've looked at the risks. I don't think it makes sense for me. There's no public justification for it either. So I don't know why we're doing it, particularly since vaccination rates in California are already so high.
Anna?
Well, while the likelihood of contracting coronavirus is in fact lessened for those who have gotten the vaccine, it is true, you're correct, that there are possibilities for what's referred to as a breakthrough infection. The point of getting as many people vaccinated as possible isn't just about minimizing the spread of the vaccine. It's about minimizing the number of hospitalizations and the number of deaths associated with coronavirus. At the same time, we also need to be considerate of individuals who might have allergies or other comorbidities or other issues that would prevent them from being able to get vaccinated. As we all know, former Secretary of State Colin Powell passed away recently, and he was fully vaccinated. In fact, he was scheduled to get his booster shot. But the reason why he passed away due to complications related to coronavirus is because he had other comorbidities. And so spreading the virus, also not being considerate of individuals who wouldn't even be able to get the vaccine in the first place, I think is an issue. And we already had an overburdened, overwhelmed healthcare system that was literally turning people away with other health issues who desperately needed treatment. We just did not have enough hospital beds for it. Now, with that said, I do agree that there are certain policies on a state level that seem to be a little nonsensical. So I'll give you a specific example of that. There is indoor dining in California. However, you need to wear a mask as you enter inside the restaurant. And then when you sit down, you take the mask off so you can eat. I'd like to see the data indicating that wearing the mask as you're walking to your table has like some significant positive impact. But in terms of California being a little more strict with their vaccine mandates and their policies, I think it's because of the fact that we live in one country. There is a considerable amount of travel taking place between states right now, and it's going to be difficult to determine whether we're dealing with California residents or if we're dealing with people from out of state who may have had much more laxed policies or regulations from where they're coming from. So I think that's part of the reason why we're seeing stricter treatment toward coronavirus and vaccines in California specifically.
So one of the big questions now, as the rubber meets the road on these mandates, is what do we do when people say, no, I'm not going to get it? We saw Southwest sort of had to walk back from their policy because not enough pilots were getting it. LA having to delay implementation of their vaccine mandate because not enough police officers and firefighters and other city employees got it. Do you think, Anna, that people, especially government employees, should be fired if they don't get the vaccine?
I think a far more effective way of incentivizing people to get vaccinated is not to essentially get them fired, but, and I've been an advocate for this for a long time, it would make much more sense to tie stimulus money or relief money or some sort of financial incentive for those who do agree to get vaccinated, right? I think that there should be more carrots, not in the form of raffles. I thought that was incredibly cheesy and clearly didn't work. But if there is a financial incentive tied to it, rather than firing people, that could be far more effective. The other thing that I would like to see happen is for the media to stop turning this into an identity politics issue, right? Mm-hmm. This has been a politicized issue from the very beginning, so much so that now someone's vaccinated status is very much part of their identity. Mm-hmm. It doesn't even have to do with empirical evidence anymore. It doesn't have anything to do with what's right or what's wrong. It's really about this tribalistic nature of American politics. And I would like to see the media be a little more responsible in the way that they cover this.
Yeah, Governor Newsom said to me that he felt like Oprah when he was handing out all that money, and it turned out that that didn't really seem to help in terms of the statistics that we saw this week. Steve, what do we do, though, now? These companies, the government are having this moment with the deadline. Should people be fired? Should they fight back? Where do you see this going?
No, they should not be fired. It's absolutely obscene and unconscionable, particularly at a time when we're recovering from the economic devastation of all the lockdowns, which I was against as well. I argued for a much more focused approach where we protected the vulnerable. Nevertheless, particularly in California, had a very tough lockdown, trying to get back from that, small businesses trying to find people to work. It's insane to me that we're actually firing people when we want to get people back to work. And it's even more disgraceful that we're actually talking about firing people who work in our healthcare system at the time when we're worried about a pandemic. We're firing people in the police departments when we're worried about rising crime in our cities. It makes absolutely no sense, particularly because there isn't this broad public health argument for it. In terms of the hospital, I agree with a lot of what Anna said, and it was true that people were being turned away from hospitals earlier on in the pandemic. Mostly that was to do with the lockdowns, not because of that was a choice that the hospitals made in order to comply with lockdown orders. Now, there isn't really that pressure there. I don't see the justification. And if you're sitting there, look at some of the people that I've spoken to who explain why they're refusing to take the vaccine. It's not all this caricature. And again, Anna's right to say we shouldn't politicize it, but the caricature that's been put out there, it's all a bunch of Trump supporters with their MAGA hats, kind of raging against the machine. There are so many different reasons people might not want to get the vaccine. For example, people I know who've been trying incredibly hard to have a baby, going through IVF, all the pain and stress that causes, and think, right at that moment, am I really going to risk it? Yes, they're told that there's no risk to fertility, but when you've been through that much anxiety as a young family, do you really want to risk it? People who, for cultural reasons, thinks vaccine, like an Indian family I know, who said, well, actually, in our culture, we think of Ayurvedic medicine. The whole idea of vaccines is not something that we're used to. It's so much broader a range of reasons that people might have. I think we should respect that. As I say, particularly when our rates of vaccination in California are so incredibly high.
All right, so just
Steve,
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt, but I would like some clarification on an argument that Steve made. So Steve referenced the lockdowns and how they resulted, I should say, to the hospitals being overwhelmed. How exactly did that work? I'd really love an elaboration on that.
Because the hospitals were actually canceling treatments, for example, for cancer or long-term conditions in order to prioritize COVID patients. In a lot of cases, the patients didn't arrive. There were many examples, for example, in Orange County. I remember the hospitals there down in Irvine, of the hospitals waiting for the coronavirus patients, clearing out the beds, and it never happened. And actually, the idea that the hospitals were overwhelmed in California, certainly some hospitals absolutely were. And in many cases, they still are, particularly in the more rural areas where the capacity isn't so great. So I'm not trying to minimize the idea that this has been a huge stress on our system, but we've added to the stress with some of the lockdowns earlier on in the pandemic. And now we're adding to it by actually putting in place policies that mean that some of these healthcare institutions have fewer workers.
Oh, that's okay. So you're not trying to draw some causal relationship between the lockdowns and then that resorting to overwhelmed hospitals?
No, quite the opposite. I think that it made it made things harder. And I think that it was one of the negative. Well, my big argument against the lockdowns was that actually we didn't take into account the negative consequences of the lockdowns as well as the benefits of the lockdowns in stopping the spread. I think we needed to have a more cohesive view of both sides of that equation rather than just going for these blanket lockdowns.
Well, an interesting and nuanced conversation on all of this. Just to wrap things up real quickly, a final word from each of you. Anna, on the importance of vaccine mandates.
I believe that this is, in fact, a public health concern, and it's not just about individual freedom, where individual freedom is certainly important. I do believe that when it comes to our own bodies, we should be able to make choices that impact us and us alone. The fact of the matter is, this has to do with a highly contagious virus that has an impact on the communities around us. And as a result, I think that the vaccine mandate absolutely does, in fact, make sense here, and I'm glad to see it working.
Steve?
Look, I think that you can be pro-vaccine, as I am, and anti-mandate, as I also am. And if it's not too boring for my first time on the show to end on a note of agreement with Anna, I would say absolutely I agree that we need to take the politics out of it. It's become so divisive and unnecessarily so. I've tried to avoid doing that on the platforms where I operate. I've tried to lay out the arguments and the facts in a reasonable manner. And I think, as I said at the beginning, we need to be pleased with the fact that here in California, our vaccination rate is incredibly high. That is good for everyone who's been vaccinated, but for the community as a whole.
And our health outcomes right now in California better than just about anywhere else in the country as well. I like this, bringing people together here on The Issue Is. Anna Kasparian, Steve Hilton, great to see both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.